Have you ever felt that the rate of change is so rapid that you can barely catch your breath? That's overwhelm. We have it as leaders, we have it as authors when we're trying to juggle all of those different things together. And so we have to move from an I can't attitude to I can attitude when there's just so much on the go. And that's why I've invited our guest Joni Peddie, the author of I Can't to I Can, who is going to be speaking to us about a couple of strategies that leaders need to implement so that they can stay calm and centered and focused on what the goal is with clarity without losing their shit, as they say. So welcome to the show, Jo.
Thanks, Kim.
Tell me, why is it that this kind of work makes you passionate?
Well, there are many books written about cognitive flexibility. So using our brains, metacognition, what we can do as leaders. There are many books written about emotional intelligence and how we can better self-manage and interpersonally interrelate. But I'm yet to find a book that takes mental clarity, which is the C, emotional agility, which is the A, and the physical nexus, which is the N. So it's more than an attitude. It's looking at your mental abilities, your emotional abilities, and how your physiology, this is an ecosystem,
yes,
how that plays into your leadership style.
Mm-hmm. And I find the physical part of it incredibly interesting, because when we're under a lot of pressure, some of the things that disappear is we stop exercising, we go to the fridge and we just grab whatever we can just because we're really hungry, and that throws us off balance. How does that play out in a leader where they have got a lot on the go?
Well, I'm going to just start with a little story first. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, they've just gone into the 4 trillion market cap bracket with NVIDIA. So he says explicitly, as a leader of that huge organization, there is not a day that goes by without 30 minutes of exercise. Yes, he meditates and he prays and he's got other modalities. But if that kind of leader of that huge multinational can, carve out 30 minutes, we all should be able to. But your question was the reverse, and it's a good question, is that, how does that affect us? Well, this organ between our brain, between our ears, gets sluggish. So if you put rubbish in, that prefrontal cortex, the executive functioning, making smart decisions, using your time wisely, prioritizing, it actually doesn't work effectively. So we've really got to look at, what goes in here and how we mobilize our body. When we lived in nature, we walked 12 to 18 kilometers per day, and now we sit on our buttocks 12 to 18 hours per day.
Yes.
Like, this ecosystem is not designed for that, sitting behind a desk.
And I think as writers, so I find this, in the morning I go for a walk, and I go for the walk when it's very, very dark. I like the silence. I don't have kids asking me questions, what's for breakfast, or when it's so I find that creativity actually comes out of me. I will I should contact that person and ask them to do this. And all the networking ideas, the creativity, I've come back and written chapters specifically from that walk. So when I don't do the walk, where I get trapped in these are all the things that I've got to do today and there's no time, I don't experience that. I just go from one thing to the next thing. Now, inside the book, you've got a really great example. I think that the lady's name is Sarah, and that everything was according to plan, but then there were a couple of those unexpected things that happen. So when you're facing that, if a leader was just starting to read this book, but they haven't gone through all of it, and they're facing a crisis right now, those things, it's not your fault, but it just happens, how do you get back into that place of clarity and calm?
Well, there's so many techniques for that, but I just want to start off by saying that I wrote the book really with kind of my own orientation to life, is that I've got thousands of leadership books. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but I literally sent off the other day about 500 to a business school, because I'm clearing out. And I don't read business books cover to cover. It's like, what do I need as a leader of my business right now? So this book is written with that frame in mind, is that go to the chapter that you need. So perhaps that leader who's facing, like Sarah, the uncontrollables, where suddenly the supply chain, the shipping company pulls out of South Africa and you can't use that shipping company anymore and your costs go up 30% or it's Trump tariffs 30%, is that what do you need? So maybe you need at this moment in time some decision mastery. So the techniques in the book are, as a leader, how do I actually maximize my decision mastery? Like how do I get that divergent thinking going and think laterally, because that's an art in itself.
Yes.
How do I then look at different modalities for prioritizing or matrices for looking at, 4 quadrants and then convergent thinking? So the decision mastery might be the chapter that you go to, you don't read anything else. And then you as a leader look at some of those techniques. And then as a team, perhaps you go, right, as a team, let's look at our decision mastery. So I've really written the book with that kind of thinking in mind. Could be decision mastery. It could be something around relationships and trust. So it's the uncontrollables of the macroeconomics that have hit your business. But now you've got to knuckle down as a team, and there's a little bit of psychological safety, issues, problems, a little kind of gremlin creeping in. How do you build relationships and trust? Because you now have to cut costs, you don't want to cut heads, whatever it is. So there are 15 capabilities in the book.
Now, while you're speaking about trust, a thought occurred to me. As I was reading it, you were saying that sometimes the leader actually doesn't have any of the answers. True. And recently, when I was doing some training at a company, they were saying they had a buyout. And when they spoke to HR, the HR department was saying, no, we've got to stay positive. But they're like, but we don't even know if we're going to have jobs. They're not having any of the conversations. And I understand that the leaders don't even know what the outcome is going to be like. How would you handle that kind of situation as a leader where you just don't know what's going on?
It's a good old being at the airport analogy, is that the plane has been delayed and you as a leader want to, pretty much as you hear on the announcements, sorry, we're still delayed, we don't know why, but it's, you just keep on saying that every 10 minutes. So the leader to get their team together. I had a recent example actually in Australia with a team, an Anglo-American team, so South African business, but they were being bought out by a much smaller company in the States. And they didn't know what was happening because now it was a really reverse merger situation in mining. And they were completely, anxious, uncertain who was going to go, what's going to happen. And the CEO of the Australian business had no cooking clue what was going to happen. But it was the discussions around what are the what ifs here? What are the options if we are retrenched? What are the options if we are all absorbed? But, our IT division is far more affected than that smaller company. So it's the brainstorming and the sharing. We say in psychology, Kim, name it to tame it. Because if you don't have the answers as a leader, if you just have those conversations, which are inclusive conversations, you start to tame that emotional bubbling in the brain. And it actually does happen. So if I put you in an MRI machine and I said, Kim, just name what you're going through right now. I know it's really difficult. This left part of your prefrontal cortex, this ventricle part here, actually simmers down. So it's a neuroscience-based technique to have those deep conversations.
I love that. Now, a little bit more personal.
Yes.
When I work with authors, and there's a lot of authors that are going to be watching this, so pay attention. When I work with authors, very often they're leaders or coaches, they've got a lot going on, and now they're packing a book on top of that. And very often it's the emotional energy that goes into creating the book. So if you look at the neural pathways, you haven't yet stepped into the identity as an author. You haven't yet practiced those things that it takes to be an author. So it feels foreign and it feels like you can't do it. Yeah. Now, how did you move? Because I know you're very busy. You are the vice president of the Global Speakers Federation, and you've got a lot on your plate, but now you had to add a book onto it. So how did you move into the I Can to get this book finished?
It's a very good question. And actually, if I join the dots backwards, it sounds like a strategy. It's not. So joining the dots backwards is I co-authored my first book. Mm-hmm. So there were just 2 of us, and we said, these are the 21 chapters. We're each going to do half the book. So that's made it easier. And that was, goodness, about 15 years ago, maybe more. And that's all I did. I was kind of like the more passive author, like here are my 15 chapters. This is how I want to lay it out. And then my co-author took over, did the book cover, did all the other stuff. So I was clueless about what went behind the scenes there. And then I co-authored another 2 books, which was as easy as submit a chapter, boom, bang, thank you, ma'am, and off I go. So when I came to write from can't do to can do, 9 human capabilities that AI can't replicate, this 4th book is I already had that identity of I am an author. But Kim, your question is so pertinent, is that how did I overlay it with the other responsibilities in my life? I've been writing this book since 2019, so it's been percolating. It's taken so many different forms. And then I went on a boot camp. And in March, I happened to be speaking in Australia. I went on a 2-day boot camp and I wrote 77% of this book in 2 days. Yes, it's been percolating and I've been training and workshopping and coaching and speaking on stages about all that content. So it wasn't research the content, it was all in my brain. But being in a room with a facilitator who does, the good old Pomodoro technique, you write for 25 minutes and you have a 5-minute break. And she was strict as ever. And we had other authors in the room. That's what got me over the line.
That's very helpful because we're going to be having a writer's retreat in November, and that is specifically what we're going to focus on.
I would absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, say people should attend a writer's retreat. And there's something about the energy in the room when you're all writing together, and you have a writer's block, and like everybody's like looking down, doing their stuff. You're going like, I've got to kick into gear. I've got to kick into gear. And there's a beautiful energy mobilization. And then that's physiological because we emit energy. So it's wonderful to be on a retreat. I'd highly, highly recommend that.
Thank you for the little punt for me.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, Joni,
what did I attend that one? When is it in
It's going to be November the 6th to the 9th of November. So it's a Thursday to a Sunday. It's going to be at Casablanca in just outside of Pretoria.
All right.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've got another book that I'm brewing.
Oh, excellent. It's almost addictive when you start. And that's sometimes why the morning walk is a little bit scary for me because I'm like, oh, I could write a book about that. And but you have still got these books you've got to finish. So just in terms of taking care of yourself, I find a lot of leaders when they've got a very big project on the go, at the end of the project, or sometimes even during the project, they get sick. And that means that it just throws everything out. How do you manage that added pressure so that you don't drop the ball?
Okay, there is, in this book, it is called Energy and Vitality. And I actually use the metaphor of the very oldest stool, which was designed in the 17th century for milking cows. So it's 3-legged stool, because why? It stands on uneven ground. So as a leader, when you are big projects, there's lots of uncertainty that goes with a big project on uneven ground. The trifecta, the 3-legged stool that you don't trade in. Eat well. So as natural as possible. What can you pluck off a tree, dig out the ground? So real food, no processed food. And it's easy to put nuts in your briefcase or dried fruit or biltong or whatever. So eat well. Not a grain of sugar. 1 teaspoon of sugar depletes your immune system in terms of its fighting power by 70%.
Wow.
So no carbonated soft drinks, no jubes, nothing, okay? So eat well. The second one is sleep well. And as you know, one of my keynote talks is sleep is your superpower. So I don't trade in sleep for anything, okay? 7 hours minimum. And I'm religious about what time I go to bed and what time I wake up. And that's 7 days a week, because what the body doesn't like is you sleep badly during the week and you try and make up for it on the weekends. Don't do that as a leader. And then the third one is your earlier point around move well. And really the body is designed to move in the mornings, yes, if you want to do that, because it affects your sleep less. Evening high intensity movement can, be detrimental to sleep. But the other thing that I do when I've got on a big project is I have got called the skipping ropes, and I skip for about a minute every 2 hours or so. So that trifecta, Kim, of eating, moving, and sleeping, especially moving during the day to clear out the brain, to give you fresh ideas, you will not get sick.
I love that. So authors, make sure that you follow all of that, and leaders. Joni, what did you learn about yourself writing this book?
I learned that actually the more relaxed and the more casual I got, And the more I sunk into the Joniisms, and I thought, like, bugger it, I know that doesn't sound very, politically correct. I'm just going to say it. The more I found that my tone was just easy and I could really be authentic and be myself. So I had to go back and rewrite some of those earlier chapters that sounded too formal, because the more I carried on, the more casual I became. So I learned a lot about, hey, just sink into your casualness and don't be worried about what people think about you.
I like that because, I say to people, I did 4 years of study. I'm done with textbooks. And so when I read books, if it doesn't have some of that personality that comes through, then it feels like just another textbook to me.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to touch on one thing before we close up, because I love these kinds of conversations and I can tend to carry on for quite some time.
Good.
But this whole thing already started when you had a personal crisis. So you had a death in the family and it shifted things quite dramatically. And what you might not know about me, so when I looked at this, I realized that you adopted your niece and nephew, and I'm adopted. So that stood out to me. That's one of the things that I like about the book, is that your personal side came through it. And you've coined this phrase, bouncing forward, not bouncing back. Tell us a little bit about why you use that phrase.
So when I lost my husband 18 years ago, my children were 7 and 9, and we had adopted my late husband's niece and nephew. So I had 4 children at 4 schools. I'm going to fast forward now because this is quite a long story. But what our mates and even family members said to us were, you, especially Joni, you're a strong woman, you will bounce back. You will be able to cope. 4 children, 4 schools, you'll manage. And I remember thinking, I have this emotion that arises, and it's not only sadness and trauma feelings, it's anger and frustration. And I think the next person who says, Joni, you're a strong personality, you'll bounce back, they're going to get a bloody nose. I just want to punch them in the face. So I had to self-reflect on that, and I had to think, this emotion is arising in me. And I chatted to my girls and the niece and nephew, and I said, our family picture is broken. It's never going to be the same. Okay, so we now don't have Gareth in that family picture. So we need to bounce forward to a new family picture. It's going to be jolly hard. And I have to say, Kim, I had suicide ideation. It was a very dark, dark time. But this bounce forward was my little coping mechanism to saying we can never go back to that. So in what way can I reformat? Because families are systems. So one family member leaves, it's a whole ecosystem that changes. And that was the birth of Bounce Forward. And then actually, again, joining the dots backwards, because this was not by design, is my niece and nephew went to go and live with their aunt, my late husband's sister. And then it was just the 3 of us. So it was another system. And I said to my daughters at the time, I said, you know what? They got phones eventually. It wasn't parked straight after his death. And I called that WhatsApp group between the 3 of us, the Can Do Girls. And I had a few other WhatsApp groups that they were in with families around the world, whatever. And I said to them, listen, girls, the other WhatsApp groups, home groups and, Granny in Australia, etc., that's fun. If I post on the Can Do Girls, it's like, by sunset, must be done. So it became and they did the same back to me. They're very gutsy, these girls. Is that on that group is only... by close of day, this is a non-negotiable. And we still got it. Sometimes we do emotive stuff on that group. Now they're 25 and 27. And we'll do, I'm having a hard day because X, Y, Z. And they will share some of their emotions on there. So it's not instructional. But, when I looked at mental clarity, the C, emotional agility, and physical nexus, CAN, kind of would loop back. I thought, I've had this Can Do Girls WhatsApp for donkey's years. So it was just an interesting kind of linking it all together.
Thank you for that. And what I love about it is that when I look at the book, it's actually framed around teams. Yes. And you developed that team.
True. It's also a right? A family is a team as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, but a little bit that way. Thank you.
Joni, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been absolutely fantastic. And where can people get this book?
Exclusive books. Yep.
Lovely.
Good reads as well.
Okay. And then, of course, when Joni does her workshops, I'm pretty sure that you can make the book available as well.
A workshop book?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually going to franchise this out.
Lovely.
Because it is a Venn diagram with these, 9 capabilities. And I want people to be able to use it. I've had a woman from Jordan get a hold of me. She's going to translate it into Arabic. Like, this is my legacy project for the world. It's take the book, take the capabilities. Here's the workshop manual with all the exercises and go and make it your own.
Lovely. Legacy is my favorite word. So have a look out for the book. And thank you, Joni, for being with us.
Pleasure.
Bye for now.